Right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another video with me, Hyder. We are going to be learning how to talk like a greenskin today. That is how to talk like a goblin and maybe even an orc too. Firstly, we're going to nail the Cockney accent, so we could say things like, "They're after the power nodes!" Or maybe even go a little bit more gruff, down with a old bassy orc and go all gruff and I think we need to do some fighting. What's going on over there? Should be a bit of fun. As I say, part 1, we're going to learn to speak Cockney. Part 2, we're going to learn where to put the voice in the throat in order to try and get ourselves up to being a goblin or down to being an orc. Now, we have our 5 rules for speaking like a Cockney. Number 1 is the most important, and that is that anything that ends in an ing becomes a hard in. So we're not fighting, we're fighting. So not only do I throw the F out like I'm trying to hit someone with it, which we'll come to later when we're talking about sort of enunciation as a goblin, but we're also really emphasising the in. So it's fight in, fighting. Then we have, I don't know, clubbing. It's, why would an orc go clubbing? Oh, unless he was hitting someone. That could work. All INGs, hard IN. You want to imagine it's 2 separate words. Take the ING off, put a space in the middle. Fight in. Fighting. Fighting. Easy to do, got to remember it. If you are doing an ING, you're in the wrong sector, I'm afraid. So, moving on to rule number 2, and this is a nice one too. I like missing out T's in the beginning of a word, the end of a word. Whenever there is an optional T, we like to ignore it as Londoners, as Southerners, as all sorts of Englishmen, really, and English ladies too. So, as a few example, might would turn into might. And another one, we could have something like, what is that over there? What is that over there? So again, end of the word, not really needed. Something like the word little will turn into little. Simple. Ah, that's a little fight. Or, I don't know, that's a little chopper. Simple, easy to remember, just ditch all the T's. Obviously there will be the occasional word like stomp, where you cannot ditch the T without it turning into somp. So some of them are simply necessary for the word to maintain its actual structure. Generally speaking, unless the T follows from the first syllable, it's optional when you can get rid, in which case you need to do so. Now, we move on to something even more important. Actually, just before we move on, one fantastic quote. "We better be going to a fight!" Fight. Simple. And now we move on to something a little bit more subtle, but I think quite cool, quite fun, quite quirky. The ow within our language also disappears in favour of an a. And I think to keep things simple, you could probably change the as well also to an a. So let's just take the word power, which contains both quite conveniently. Power would be power. It's a power station, mate. Or, they're after the power nodes. I need a new power chopper. Or a new power claw. Exciting times to be an orc, I am sure. So, simple but hard and tricky to perhaps mix in, but just keep in mind out when you're saying the word power, because that's going to come up in Orky dialect fairly often, but also would come up in things like shooter, which would turn into shooter, or slugger, which would be slugger. So, simple. Next we're going to go with another more subtle rule, but I think one that's quite important. And this is that you no longer think as an orc, you now think. You have a F in place of a th, because your tongue is far too busy doing other things, I guess, as an orc. So, quite simply, I think he's thick. Or, I think he's a bit thick. Simple. Think. I can't actually think of any other sentences. I think I am a bit thick. Anyway, moving on. Last of all, the L's at the end of a word will be replaced with a W. Now it sounds strange, but bear with me. Little ends in an L. Little. Little. O. W. Little W at the end there. So, little. That's a little bob there you got, mate. I don't know. Sound like Michael came for a bit. Anyway, we'll crack on. So ignore L's at the end because something like wheel or we will will be wheel, or a wheel on a bus would be wheel on a bus. Wheel on a bus. Fighting a wheel on a bus. I'm lost now. I'm done. Well, let's go on to talking about actually where to get the voice, how to get that up there. It's easier said than done, I think. For a goblin, firstly, I would say practice by gargling. Take a beverage of your choice. Mine, as today, would happen to be Beer Moretti, an expensive premium lager, and I'm not sponsored by them. But I'm not going to do it live for you for ASMR purposes, but have a little gargle. I'm not going to gargle, I just really like the taste. But have a gargle, put some in your throat, lean back, just do that. The muscles you tighten when you do that are the ones that shift the voice enough to get it at the back of the throat and resonating enough to start sounding like a greenskin. Try it. So instead of going, I, it's back there, I. That's where you want it. It's a weird sound, but once you got it back there, then you can start messing around and talking like you want to go fighting something. It's not hard to do, honest. Gargle first, and then talking like it's back up there, mate. And once you can do that with a Cockney talk, then you can start shouting and you talk like a goblin. Let's move on to number 2, which is shouting. Now, obviously, that does apply to orcs as well. Orcs are difficult because if you don't have an inherently deep voice, it is quite hard to intentionally bring your voice down, talking like you're really bassy, and then start shouting so you can make it sound like a proper orc. It's not so easy to do, but the first step is to get it in the back of the throat. Once you feel it in the back of your throat, like if you have any phlegm back there, it needs to be flying all over the place. Then you start shouting. And what I would say, shouting, weird to do at first. You need to maybe do it on the way home from work or something like that. When you're in a car, you can shout to yourself. You're not in traffic with people either side of you. I do this every day on my way back from home. I'm weird. But talk to yourself, shout to yourself a little bit, but without raising volume. So fighting. I'm fighting. I'm not going any louder as I do that. I'm just really forcing it out of my mouth in a way that makes it sound like it's sort of far more aggressive. And I think that's a really good point as well with the goblin lingo. And the orc for that matter, is really throw. I was about to say, really throw? You want to throw the word out your mouth. Look, you want to throw the word out of your mouth as hard as you can quite often. So, I want to do some fighting. Really emphasise, especially words that will be important to a greenskin. Where's me chopper? Real emphasis on chopper. That one just resonated through the room. I liked it. So there's a few tips for you to try and get into the greenskin way of thinking, way of speaking, and also learn to talk like a little bit of a Cockney. Now, remember, next video coming up is how to talk like you're from, you're from the moot. For the greater good. We're going to be talking like halflings, and it's going to be ridiculous, but it could be a bit of fun. Guys, have yourself a wonderful day. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. I will see you next time. This has been completely pointless, but hopefully somewhat educational. Take care.